Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going to be going over the Calvin cycle, and the Calvin cycle is one of the stages of photosynthesis, and it's essentially the second stage of photosynthesis. It's sometimes called the light independent reactions. So light independent reactions, I'm just going to write LIR for this. And this does not mean that these reactions don't occur. This does not mean that these reactions occur in the absence of light. Usually it doesn't need light, but usually it happens with the light dependent reactions as well. So it would happen during day as well. So it's not like a nighttime reaction. The Calvin cycle occurs in this part of the chloroplast called the stroma. And the stroma is basically the part of the chloroplast where you have the outer membrane, you have the inner membrane, you have the thylakoids, and it's basically the fluid-filled component of the chloroplast. That's where it occurs. And the Calvin cycle has some major enzymes that work, and the most important one is going to be this one called Rubisco. So Rubisco, and that stands for ribulose. I think this is ribulose bisphosphate carboxylase, but in an exam you can definitely write Rubisco short. And what we need to is we have these molecules called RUBPs. So RUBPs are called ribulose bisphosphate, and they're the starting molecules, right? So ribulose bisphosphates are 5 carbon molecules, and for the purposes of this, we're going to start off with 6 RUBPs. With these 6 RUBPs, the next stage is going to be where we get 6 carbon dioxide molecules to fit into each of these RUBPs. So what we get is we get a 6 carbon compound. So the 6 carbon compound that results is called, well, it's just a 6 carbon compound. Let's just call it that. And we get 6 of those. But the enzyme that catalyzes this reaction is called Rubisco. So this is where Rubisco comes in. So it's called carboxylase because it adds a carbon to the RUBPs. So each of the 6 RUBPs gets a CO2 molecule and becomes a 6 carbon compound. And the cool part about this 6 carbon compound, it's highly unstable. So it's got a lot of energy, and with things that are unstable, what do you think happens? It breaks down, and when it breaks down, it goes into these things called glycerate 3-phosphates, or GPs. Sometimes they're called G3Ps. I'm going to write them as G3Ps. And these are 3 carbon compounds. So earlier we had 6 times 6 carbons, right? So 6 carbon compounds, that's 36 carbons. Now we have how many 3 carbon compounds? Remember, we should have the same number of carbons. So we're going to have 12 of these. Next, what happens is ATP and NADP react with these compounds. Specifically, there's a mechanism by which ATP phosphorylates this molecule. Breaks down ATP breaks down into ADP plus a phosphate group, and basically it undergoes this molecule undergoes changes. Along with that, NADP is going to be reduced to form NADPH, and because of this, with reduction comes oxidation. So we get a molecule called a triose phosphate, right? Specifically 12 triose phosphates. And these 12 triose phosphates, right? They're going to be, for them to form, we're going to need 12 ATPs and 12 NADPs, right? And, I just realized I made a mistake actually. It's meant to be NADPH to NADP plus and 6 and a hydrogen, sorry. So NADPH is actually going to be oxidized for the triose phosphate to be reduced. So it's oxidized because it's losing a hydrogen. Yep. And these triose phosphates are the key players when it comes to the photosynthesis, because these triose phosphates can be used to make glucose. And if you recall, glucose is one of the most important things made, in fact the most important thing, maybe oxygen arguably, but it's one of the most important things made in photosynthesis. For the purpose of this, we have 1/6, or sorry, 1/6 of the amount of 12 triphosphate go into making the glucose, and so each triphosphate, it hasn't lost any carbons in this process with ATP and NADPH, but it's still 3 carbon. It's just a different form. So what happens is we're going to need to make glucose, which is a 6 carbon compound. To make a 6 carbon compound from 3 carbon compounds, you're going to need 2 of these 3 carbon triphosphate. As a result, you're going to need to make 1 glucose with 2 of these, 2 of the 12, which is just 1/6 of the triphosphates. So you're going to get 1 glucose molecule from the 2 triphosphates. And the rest are going to be needed to make RUBP. So what happens next is we have another process. The reaction by which a triphosphate forms RUBPs is going to require energy, and this energy, as you might guess, comes from ATP. Specifically for the purpose of this, where we have 12 triphosphates, we're going to need 6 ATP molecules to hydrolyze. So ATP becomes ADP plus phosphate, because you know how that works. And what you get is you need 6 of those, because we have the 5 left, and it's usually for each 6 triphosphates you have here, you're going to need 3 ATPs. At least that's how they show in most textbooks. So since we have 12 here, we're going to need 6 of these. And what you have is you're going to have the other 5/6 of these 12 triphosphates. So it's going to be 10 times triphosphates, which is going to be 30, 30 carbons, right? Which is exactly equal to the number of 6 times 5 carbon RUBPs, which is 30. So this is a cycle, that's why it's called the Calvin cycle. And the key parts are the carboxylation with RUBP, with Rubisco and carbon dioxide form 6 carbon compounds. The 6 carbon compounds forming triphosphate. Triphosphates are the key players becoming glucose. Glucose is 6 carbon, and the rest of the triphosphates are used to regenerate RUBPs. So this cycle continues, and I like drawing it this way because this is the way I was taught a few days ago. And sometimes people draw it differently, but I prefer this ratio. But if you look at all these ratios, they're gonna be the same. So it doesn't really matter which one you learn. Other than that, that's really it for the Calvin cycle. And thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment down below any topics you want me to cover. I'll be happy to help, and see you guys later. Thanks for watching.